Hi everybody, and so welcome to the quilting portion of the Kimberbell Cuties. I'm just going to video this, pre-record this video. All the quilting will be basically the same. You can quilt lots of different ways. I'm going to quilt using the clear blue tiles, the Kimberbell clear blue tiles. I kind of like them. I'm getting used to using them, and I find them very fun and fast to use and easy. But first of all, let's talk about preparing our top. So again, these are traditionally pieced. So, we've traditionally pieced. I happen to be working on the May one right now. So the first one we'll do is the February, but this is the May cutie. And so I pieced my top and put the little borders on and the triangles and so on. And then what I want to do first is I want to sandwich it. So you need a backing. So here's my backing, a piece of batting, and then your top. So I cut my batting and my backing 28 inches square. These are about 22 or 22 and a half or so when they're done. So the 28 is a nice size so that you have a little bit to clamp onto, like with your hoop on the outside edges, okay? So cut your batting and your backing at about 28 inches square. So that's what I did. And then I laid everything out on my table, smoothed it all out real well, tried to, I didn't quite hit it perfectly, but I tried to get my square right in the center, got as close as I could. And then what I do is I pin baste. So I just took my safety pins and I pin basted my top down to my backing and my batting. I'm not a huge spray fan, so if you use spray adhesive, you can do that, of course. It's not super great for your machines. Some of the spray adhesive gets down in your hook area and stuff, so I wouldn't really recommend using spray based. I use pins. So, and then, yeah, you got to take them out, but it's not a big deal to take them out. So anyway, I just took my safety pins and I pin basted my top. And then the other thing that I've discovered as I've been playing with this is this works real well for small things. Sorry, I have kind of a frog in my throat this morning. The one thing that I've found with these is, when you're doing edge-to-edge quilting, so this is going to be kind of an edge-to-edge overall pattern. And we'll talk about a couple of other options also. But when I do these, I have to sew off the edge. So when I'm sewing off the edges of these things, in the instructions for Kimberbell, it tells you to use tape and tape it down. I've tried glue stick. I've tried all different kinds of things, and it just doesn't work. The foot on our machine, so see, some machines have feet that hop up and down when they embroider. Our machines, most of the brother machines and baby lock machines do not. They are stationary. So what happens is that even if you try to tape it, if you try to glue it, the foot just slides right under the tape and pulls everything up. So I was working away and I was trying to figure out, the book told me to tape, and I'm trying to tape, and then you sew over the tape and you got to try to get it out, and it's kind of a mess. So with small items, I find this works really well. If you're doing a large quilt, you'd probably have to kind of do this as you went because of it, pushing out as you're going this way, okay, as you're quilting. So what I did here, and you probably can't see it very well, I'm going to turn it over. I actually zigzagged, and you can use a big zigzag, a little zigzag. I just happened to have my binding zigzag up, so I used it. Sometimes the bigger ones are a little easier. So I zigzagged the edge down all the way around the outside edge after I pinned it so that I knew that it was nice and flat already, okay? And for small things like this, you can do the zigzagging, from the beginning, and I don't have any puckering or anything. But if you're doing a big quilt, just like I do a quilt on a long arm, I kind of have to baste it, the edges down as I'm going. So you're going to have to kind of do that. You'd have to kind of baste as you're working out from the inside, maybe baste a section on the top and the bottom when you're working on the middle maybe, and then just kind of work out as you go, and then baste the edges before you do you know, zigzag or baste the edges before you do the final rows on the outside. This way I can turn my head and it doesn't get caught under anything. The taping, I've tried all that other stuff, and it just doesn't work well because the foot just slides right under it no matter what I did. So this is how I have done it. I get everything basted, pin basted, and then I zigzag along the edge. And you could use a wider zigzag. I just happen to have the narrow one. I usually use a wider one. I don't know. I just happen to have that one up already. So, okay. So that's how I prep my top. So I've got my top pin basted to my batting and my backing. The batting and backing is 28 inches square. So I have some hooping room. You want at least 3-4 inches around the outside. So 28 seemed to be a good size. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, so there's several different ways you could quilt this. So depending on what you like to do, you could just quilt this with your sewing machine with lines, or you could free motion it if you're a good free motioner, if you like doing that. I'm not either one of those things. I have done like straight line quilting, which is very nice. So if you don't want to buy clear blue tiles, you don't have to. If you have some of the Amelie Scott edge to edge quilting designs, those would also work wonderfully on here, and you could just do the edge to edge design with one of those. So if you have those, use those. But what I'm going to show you is the clear blue tiles. I get a lot of questions about clear blue tiles. I really like them. Now, at first I was really resistant, and because I'm not real hip on marking my quilts, but I'm working on finding some different pens and stuff that I like better to mark them. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about how I came up with the size of tile I wanted to use. So I don't want to have to hoop this any more times than necessary. So I know this is approximately 22 and a half-ish square, okay? So I started kind of doing a little math in my head, and you know, I have certain squares I can work with. There's like a 6 by 10, a 6 by 12, and of course it depends on how big a hoop you have. But what I kind of figured the best option, sorry, my phone rang, the best option for this, because of the size of it, would be to use an 8 by 12 tile. So the tiles come in a couple different packages, and so this is the package with the bigger tiles, and the 8 by 12 is in this one. And then there's also a smaller, the essentials pack, which has all the smaller tiles in it. And then of course the designs, has some pens. I don't care for the pens that come with it. I'm going to show you a different pen here in a minute. And then it also has some of the slap bands that if you have a really large item, you can roll it up and, you know, use a little slap band to hold it together. So I don't have one of those out today because I'm not going to use it on this little one. If you have a design, so just so you know which sizes to buy for yourself, if you have a machine that has a 8 by 12 or smaller hoop, you need to just buy the essentials set, which is the bigger set that has all the designs and everything with it. Okay. Even if you have an 8 by 12 hoop, even though this template says 8 by 12, I have to use a 9.5 by 14 hoop to use this. When they made the designs, they're about 1/10 of an inch too big, too long actually. And so, so these will not fit in an 8 by 12 hoop. So if you have an 8 by 12 or smaller hoop, just buy the essentials set. If you have a 9.5 by 14 or larger hoop, then you can buy this expansion set, and it has a lot of the longer, bigger tiles in it. Okay, so I have a bigger machine, so I bought this expansion pack. So what I'm going to use today is an 8 by 12. So you do need to have a fairly large hoop to do this. If you have the smaller hoop, and if you need to use like a 6 by 10 tile instead of an 8 by 12, it would be fine. You'd have to hoop it more times. So it's going to have to be 4 tiles. It's going to be 4 hoopings this way, and then it would be 2 and a part of 1. And you can actually mix and match these tiles too. All of the designs are scaled, so that even if I put a 2 by 2 or a 2 by 4 at the bottom to finish up like the edges of the quilt, you can do that. So like if you don't want to have to go off the edges, You don't have to, like the 6x10, for instance, you need 2 hoopings plus a part of one, and you could use a short little square at the bottom to finish it off. So that is something that you can do. But what I like to do, since I have a bigger hoop, and I know a lot of you do, I like to actually kind of do it so that it comes out sort of even, so that I don't have to use a whole bunch of different of the clear blue tiles, a whole bunch of different sizes. And I like to be able to use the same tile through the whole thing. It just makes it faster and easier. So I kind of pick the one that I think is the most like equally divisible for the size of my quilt. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So what I did is I chose the 8x12. Now the 8x12 is just a little bit long, obviously. So then I only have to do it 2 times. So I only have to have 2 rows. So there'd be 1 row on the top half and 1 row on the bottom half. And see, it's going to stick out just a little bit at the top and at the bottom. But that's okay, because, I stitched this down, so it's not going to go anywhere. And so what I do with these, the first thing you have to do is mark them. And the other reason why I like to use the same size tile, if I can, through the whole like edge to edge quilting, is just because then I don't have to remember what size I'm using. I like to minimally mark my quilt. That's why I resisted these for so long. I don't like to put marks on my quilt, because some of these pens, like this is the pen that I really like. The pen that comes with it is one of those blue water soluble markers, and I'm telling you, I have a heck of a time getting those out. So I probably would not recommend this. This is a heat away pen. And this is a new one that we have on ShieldSewingCenter.com. This is the Nifty Notions ones, and it comes in like a pack of 5. And so far, these iron off the best that I've found. I don't have any residue. Some of you may have friction pens, and they're fine. Let me grab one. And they're fine. But every now and then, now this blue one, I have pretty good luck with. But these were made for paper. These are not made for specifically fabric. This is a fabric pen, okay? So this one does pretty well, but I sometimes get a brown residue on white fabric, and I also get a white residue on dark fabric. So I'm not a huge fan of these. They do work. If you like using them, by all means, just use the Frixion pens. I like the iron away ability of this, because the water soluble that they send with the tiles, you almost have to wash the item to get it off. I cannot, because what happens is you mark it with the little water soluble blue pen. It's the blue ones, and it kind of sinks down, it soaks down into the batting, and then as it dries, it kind of comes back to the surface, and you just can't get it out without washing everything. And sometimes I've had to wash it twice. And so that's not my favorite option. So we're going to use one of the Nifty Notions heat away pens. These are heat vanishing pens is what they call them. They have several colors. Sometimes I have a little trouble getting them started. So mine have been sitting upside down like this in the drawer for a long time. So if you shake them and then turn them upside down with the point down, then they seem to, drain to the point again. I have a little trouble with mine because I always have them, it seems like, upside down in the drawer for some reason. But so we're going to use this blue one today. Hopefully it's going today. I'll check it on my hand. Yep. Okay. Because they're kind of like a gel pen. All right. So what we're going to do then is I'm going to mark my quilt. I'm going to do the middle row first. That helps me. And I'm going to mark this as minimally as possible, because I don't want any more marks on here than I have to have. So Kimberbell has you do a lot of marks, and I don't find that it's really necessary, because I'm also going to show you 2 different ways of hooping. So before I leave, before we go to the machine, I'm going to show you a couple different ways of hooping. Okay, so this is my center mark. You can tell where you are in the center, because you got your little point here from your center, your table topper. And I'm just going to lay a ruler down here so I kind of get, this centered on the marks down here. Pull it up a little bit so you can see it. Okay. Like that. And then I'm going to pull this down to the ruler, and then that should be about the center-ish. Okay, and if it's not exactly perfect, it'll be fine, but this will be good. Okay, so there, it looks good. Like that. And I've got this centered on my little tip up here, and then we're going to mark it. So there's a bunch of marks on here, and you do need to use most of these marks, at least for the top ones. So like here, they have you mark the sides and the center. So I'm going to mark the center first. Okay, so I'm going to mark my center. Now I'm not going to mark all the way up. I'm just going to mark out a little ways from the center, and I've got a pin here, so it's going to be a little bit of a problem, sorry. And then I'm going to mark that little center dot in the center. Okay, so I've got this marked, and then I do want to mark though these side ones, because that helps me get my next template next to it lined up. And then I'm going to mark this bottom one down here. There's one here, you can see the little blue marks there. And then I'm going to mark the corners. I'm just going to go along the corners so I know where to put my next template. Okay, like that. So then I can go down to the next one. You can do it side to side too, depending on how you like to do it. But I'm going to push this up, and I'm going to line up these center ones again. So see, I'm using those marks I put right here, here, and I'm going to mark these and make sure I'm kind of even down here again. I think my tips are a little off, so it'll be fine. You won't notice it. I'm a little bit off, but I notice that my tip is a little off at the bottom, but it will be fine. You won't ever see it, okay? So, but the template looks straight. So that helps you get your template straight by lining up those marks, okay? Then I'm going to do the same thing down here. I've got this pen that is going to be a problem, so sorry. So I'm going to mark the center, okay? I'm going to mark the hole in the center. But see, I'm not going all the way out because I don't want any more marks on here than I have to have. And then I'm going to whoop, got it all moved now. Good job, Jan. And then I'm going to mark the sides so I know where to put the next one. And then the bottom one I don't have to do this time because it's off the quilt, so I'm not worried about that. So here's my center right here, the sides right here, and then this is where I put them together. All right, so now let's do the next row. So then I'm going to go over here, and I know my side is right here, and the bottom of that one was right over here, so I'm just going to line those up. Try to make sure it's pretty straight. Looks pretty good. And then I'm going to mark the center. Okay, like that. And then let's mark the corner here and the middle. And I don't need to really mark this corner because this corner is also a little bit off the edge, so we're good there too. Okay, so let's go down and we'll move it down here. That looks pretty good. And you can, there's little grids on the sides of the ruler, so you, or the templates, so you can kind of see where they go. Let's see here, that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to mark these, mark the center. Like that. Okay, so here's the center of my design here. Center, center, and then there's one down here. Okay, so here's the center. So mostly what I need is the center because I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do this. So you don't need a bunch of marks, but you do need these marks, you know, to help you get it lined up where you want. So this is a side one, and here's the bottom. So we're going to lay that there. Kind of get it lined up. Try to keep it as straight as possible. Okay, and then we're going to mark the center. So let's keep marking. I like to mark the whole thing, and that's why I like to use the same size. So they give you a little spot here to mark the size in there. So then there's another mark on your quilt, and that's why I try to do it, kind of do a little math in my head and have it come out kind of even. So that makes it easier for me. Okay, so there's that one. And then we'll move it down to this side. So you can see I don't have a ton of marks on my quilt or my top. Let's see here. Whoops, I forgot to mark this one. Makes it easier if you have the center one. I forgot to mark this one right here. There you go. And I'll bring it down. Sorry, I have morning throat, so you'll have to hear me clear my throat a few times. Okay, so get this. The dryness really bothers me. It's very dry in my house right now. Okay, and then get the little center done. And I think that's it. Okay, so there's going to be 6 hoopings with this 8x12 hoop. So if you have, or this 8x12 tile, this will be done with a 9.5 by 14 hoop because it's just too large for 8x12. So if some of your little lines are a little short, sometimes I'll extend them a little bit just to help me. But you can see there's 1, 2, 3, and then there's 3 down here. 4, 5, 6. So we're going to have 6 hoopings on this little table topper, okay, with an 8x12 clear blue tile. And there's 2 different kinds of tiles. I forgot to tell you. There's some that say finished block, and then there's some that say finished borders. So these are like the border tiles. They make a tile for the borders. So these are like narrower and longer usually if you're doing borders along the outside edge instead of doing edge to edge and doing a border. Okay, so that's why there's 2 sets of tiles. This is my set of tiles that says unfinished block, and then this is the set. So they come in 2 different bags. Okay. All right, so we got our 8x12 tile. We got it all marked. All right, so I'm going to turn the camera off just for a minute. I need to go get my hoop because I want to show you a couple different methods of hooping. And what I'm going to do, one of the methods I'm going to do here at the table, and then the other method I'm going to do at the machine. So if you give me a second, I'm just going to turn the video off so I can go grab a hoop. Okay, so I've got a 9.5 by 14 hoop here. And if you're going to be if you're going to be hooping this traditionally, if you do not have a camera, now normally if you have this big of a hoop in a brother or baby lock machine, you're going to have some sort of auto centering system. So this may be not necessary, but for those of you who have smaller hoops that are using smaller hoops for this and have a machine without an auto centering feature, like the Snowman, which I'm going to be using with the magnetic hoop, you will need to hoop these traditionally, and it's not hard. So what I just did is I've got this double-sided sticky tape. It's 1/2 inch. It's from Clover. We've got it on the website. Double-sided adhesive tape or something they call it. And I've got it on the website. But this is what works really great to keep your hoop, the inside part of your hoop, from moving around. So I put some tape on here. And this is how I do the edge-to-edge quilting too, because then you can keep everything stationary. So I'm just going to go ahead. I stuck it on the sides here. You can stick it on the top and the bottom too. I just stuck it on the sides. And it's a little hard to get off, but I have trouble getting the tape off here. This is the hardest part. Okay. And then what I'm going to do, so I'm going to flip this over. And these hoops have a top and the bottom. Now this one has a little bump at the top. So that's the top. And I'm going to get my 9.5 by 14 plastic grid. And I'm going to lay this in. Now make sure you can read the ABC. Otherwise it's not in correctly. And I'm going to lay it in there. Okay. Move this one out of the way. And I'm going to pull this down so you can see what I'm doing, hopefully. And I'm going to find my first middle. So I'm going to do this middle one first. I kind of like to work from the middle out. I'm going to take this and I'm going to lay that on my middle mark. Okay, you might have to see my head here for a second because I have to see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to get this in here. And I'm going to press this down because remember I put that sticky stuff on the sides, and then it'll kind of hold it in place for me so it doesn't get in the way. So now you notice I've got some pins in the way here, so I'd have to take some pins out. So I'm just going to kind of lift this up a little bit and grab a couple of these pins off of here. That's the only bad thing about pinning, but you know, you just kind of work around them. You can work around them with the magnetic hoops pretty easy too. So I've got some pins underneath my hoop, so I just got to take some pins out. So we'll just take a few of these out. Looks like there's one up here. If I can get it. This one's being contrary. There we go. Okay. All right. So then I've got that in there. Okay. Now what we're going to do, since this is kind of attached to the top, I'm going to loosen this. I'm going to slide this underneath and make sure it's good and loose, because then you've got some wiggle room so you can get it down. Now remember, we have this stuck down, so it really helps. And I'm just going to get this lined up like that. Now see how easy that was? So we're just, it looks like we're pretty good actually. I do have to remove another couple pins here. But it looks like we're pretty good in the center. So can you see my center here? And that looks pretty good, but we can, that's close enough that at this point I can then alter it. I'll tighten this up and I can alter it at the machine by using my, I can move the design slightly side to side or up and down just to make sure that it's exactly centered. Okay, so I'll do that at the machine for you so that you can see, for those of you who are traditionally hooping. And like I said, this is not hard. See how easy that dropped in? This is stuck down. If you stick this down to your top, it just goes right down. Use your grid, get it lined up. And then when we go over here to the machine, I'll show you how to line it up. And there's two different ways. You know, you can line it up traditionally with just dropping your needle, or if you have a laser light on your machine, you can use the laser light. So we'll use both ways, and I'll show you. So for those of you who are traditionally hooping like this, obviously it didn't take me very long to get that in there, did it? So I'm just tightening this up now, making sure the ends are in there good. Okay. So see how easy that was. So if you put the double sticky tape on the back of your hoop, it holds this down, loosen the back up so that it drops in the back really easily. And then just use your grid. That's what these grids are for. Put it in, line up that center line, and then if it's not exactly perfect, we can fix that at the machine. So I'm going to show you that part. I'm going to move over to the machine now, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to do the actual quilting. I just wanted you to show you how to do this style of lining up, and also the hooping, so that if you have to do it this way, you can. I mean, it's not, I have done hooping like this for years. It's not hard to do. You just have a couple extra steps because you got to use a grid, get it lined up, but then you can finish it at the machine. But I'm going to use my 9.5 by 14 snap hoop from Dime. And I'm going to do that at the machine. So I'll show you how I'm going to line it up at the machine. All right, so I'll turn the video off for a second and I'll move over to the machine. Okay, so I'm over here at the machine and I'm just getting my machine ready to sew. I wanted to remind everybody, I've been embroidering a cross stitch, and so I had my pre-wound bobbin in my machine. And so this is that tight bobbin case. We've talked about this before. This is the one with the blue dot that you need to use with your pre-wound bobbin. So if you're using pre-wounds, you're going to really need to use this tighter bobbin case now, because the other bobbin cases aren't tight enough. So I just taken this out. So this is my pre-wound bobbin. This is my tight bobbin case. I've taken it out because I'm going to quilt with some Pima cotton thread, and I just wound a bobbin here of my Pima cotton thread, and that one I wound myself. So this one I need to use the standard bobbin case. It has kind of a little green paint on the screw there, and I'm going to put this one into my machine. Okay, so I just wanted to show you how easy it is to switch those out. And I just leave the other one sitting up here on top of my machine with my pre-wound bobbin in it, so I remember to flip it back. So I'm going to put that in. I always think it's a good thing to review that. So then I'm going to put my Pima cotton thread in my and you could quilt with your embroidery thread if you want to. I like this Pima cotton. It's number 50, and so it's a little thinner, and the quilting is not quite so prevalent. You don't see it quite, it's not so visible, and I'm going to use white for this one because a lot of this is white. There's some black borders, but I think I'm going to try the whoops, second here, my machine has to gyrate, so let me hit the OK button here, and then we'll thread it. And I'll show you the design I'm going to use. There's a bunch of designs in the clear blue tiles. I'll show you the files. I'm going to use one of those files because it kind of matches my my top. So these are the embroidery files that come with your clear blue tiles. And there's a winter one, a spring one, swirls, fall, summer, loops, and then these are the border ones. And then they have these little bitty blocks. They're like little 2-inch blocks. And these are all there's all different sizes, you know, it's like all the border sizes, all the, you know, all the different sizes are there for all of these. So it's nice because you get a ton of designs with this. And then, so I'm going to use the spring one because it actually has like little daisies on it and leaves and these little swirls. And so my May table topper is going to have like little daisy flowers on it. So I thought, well, that'd be a cute one to do. We'll use the spring one in this one. Okay. And then I've got it on my USB stick here. This is the one that came with it. So I'm just going to put this in my machine. A second here. I don't think I have my clear blue tile files on my other stick, so we'll just put them in this one. I always have trouble with their sticks. They kind of go in backwards. I don't know what it is. Okay, so I'm going to get my spring one. Let's go ahead and thread the machine. Okay, and again, I got my Pima cotton thread in there. I'm going to hit embroidery. And then let's go find our design. So remember, this design is 8 by 12. So I'm going to go ahead and find my stick. And the embroidery files are here. And let's go to the PES files. And then I'm going to go to spring. Here it is, spring. And I'm not doing block by block. Remember, we're doing the clear blue tiles. In other words, like edge to edge. So we're going to choose those. The difference between the files, they're the same, but the difference is these do not have the batting lines in them. Okay, so it's basically the quilting with the batting lines removed. So these are cute. It has little swirls and has little daisies. So this will be a cute design for this one. So let me see. We need to go find the 8 by 12. It's probably going to be down a little ways. 8 by 8, 8 by 10, 8 by 12. So here's the 8 by 12 right here. So that's what I'm going to choose. Now, again, this design is about 0.05, actually about 0.05 inches too long for an 8 by 12 hoop. So I have to use a 9.5 by 14. So if you have a smaller machine that only has an 8 by 12, you'll have to go down to like the 6 by 10, okay, or the 8 by 10. So that it's not too long, because the width is pretty good, but it's the length that was the problem. Okay, so we're going to hit set, and almost all of them are the same size. That's what I'm finding. Okay, so this is cute. I like that with the little leaves and the flowers. All right, so and you can use any designs you want. You know, if you have other designs you've purchased, like I did some of the other ones, and I had the March one had. Ooh, the March one had kites on it. So I had one that had kites. So I had bought from Kimberbell. So Kimberbell, on their website, we have an affiliate link, and I'll post the affiliate link and everything, that you can go buy more designs. But I had one that had a kite, and I thought, well, that'd be cute on the kite one. And then the April one had a little umbrella for April showers. So I used an umbrella. I used the little umbrella design. I happened to have one. Kimberbell had a bunch of different designs. This one's actually on the clear blue tile. So I thought, well, I was looking for one that had like little daisy flowers. And I thought, well, that'd be cute because that's what's going to be on the little topper. So we'll use this one. I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit embroider. And then we're ready to go. So let me bring my other hoop over here just a second. I got to get it. All right. So here is, I left it laying on the table so it wouldn't be in the way. So we're going to put this in. Now remember, this is the traditional method, and I'm going to take this out and I'm going to show you how to do the other method. And actually, we can just sew this one, because once I get it lined up, there's no reason for me to take it out of the hoop, so I'll just leave it in the hoop. All right, this hoop's really tight in my machine. Okay. All right. So let me show you how to line this up. So I am a little bit off, so I'm going to go ahead over here. I'm going to take I'll just turn this camera a little bit. So I'm going to take this out so I can see where my little center is. Okay. Now, if you have a laser light, this is where I would turn on my laser light. So my laser light turns on my machine with the W. Okay. And most of the machines turn on with that W. Okay. You just touch it and it turns it on. So I don't know if you can see it too well. You probably can. It's kind of green right here. So there's my laser light. So you can see that I'm a little low and a little bit slightly to the left. Just so you know, the grids for the machines are not perfectly centered. They're perfectly centered to the hoop, but that is not actually the perfectly centered area in the hoop. So you most likely will have to move it slightly to get it centered. So what I'm going to do to move it is I have my laser light turned on, and I'm going to click layout or edit, depending on your machine, move, and I'm just going to bump it up until it gets higher. So it's a little higher there. That looks good. And now I need to go over to the right. So I'm just going to bump it over. Okay. That looks pretty good. Now, this is the old-fashioned way if you don't have a laser light. A lot of you do. Okay. The other thing you can do, take your thread out of your needle and just drop your needle down and make sure that it goes down right in the center. That's the old-fashioned way of doing this. We've always done it that way for years. Works great. Okay, so I like to do that even with the laser light. I still do it, and it went right down in my little polka dot right in the center here. So that's going to be lined up, ready to go. I'm just going to sew it this way. All right, so and we're going to take all of our pins out here. Got it all in the hoop. I might as well just sew it this way. So this is a traditionally hooped section. And like I said, I like to start in the center. So I started at the top on the center. And then we'll do the rest of them with the snowman. Okay. So I wanted to show you that this is not that hard to do. Let's see if I can get these. I don't know if I can get these pins out a second here. These might be a little bit of a problem. Got some stuck down here at the bottom, so hopefully get those out. That's the only bad thing about pins, but as you kind of go, you just kind of take them out, and then when you sew it, you don't need to have the pins in there anymore. And sometimes I'll put a couple back in. Okay. Most of my friends knew that I was doing a video today, but I forgot to tell my friend Connie, so she was the one that called. So I called her back while I had the video turned off. Okay. Now remember, I had already basted or did a little zigzag along there, and so I don't have to worry about what's going to happen when it goes off the back. Okay. All right. So that looks good. I think it's tight. Let me make sure it's good and tight in there. Give it just a little turn again so it doesn't come off. And you can see that you can easily traditionally hoop this. This is not hard. Now, if you're doing a smaller hoop, of course, you're going to have to hoop it more times. Now, that's fine if you don't have that big a hoop. All right, so I think I've got all the pins out. Here we go. I'm just going to hit the go button, and I'm going to move back so I don't hit the hoop. So this is a traditionally hooping, and I can do the rest of them with the snowman. It's no big deal. You just want to make sure you're lined up. And see how it went right over the top there, right over the edge without any problems. But I've got it sewn down so that it won't. I have tried and tried and tried to do different methods, like with the tape, like they tell you, and it just does not work well for me. So our machines don't have a hopping foot. So this works so much better with the stitching it down. Especially these small items, you can just stitch it down right at the beginning. So see, it's off the edge a little bit. I think I'm going to like this design. I haven't sewn this one before. I have a lot of their quilting designs. I really like them, and I have a whole bunch of different ones. So I may use some during the class. I'll show you which ones I used in the class when we do the piecing part, and I'll tell you what we're going to do. But this is going to be the video you're going to have for all of your quilting. So I thought I'd just make a nice video for just quilting, so you can just refer back to the same video each time, and then we won't quilt every single month. We'll do the embroidery and we'll do the piecing each month. Because the embroidery, now here there's a little bit of a bump there, so I'm just going to kind of hold it. I noticed that there's a little, when you piece, there's always some bumps. So to make sure it doesn't hit it. There it goes. It did kind of hit it a little bit, so I think it's okay. Sometimes I raise my foot just a smidge when I'm doing these, but most of the time it's pretty flat, so I don't have any trouble, but this one had kind of a bump there, so. It's looking good, though. I like this design. And these take about 8 minutes. So this one's a little bit longer because it has some detail with the little flowers and stuff. But most of the time these designs don't take very long. I think I am going, there's a little bit of a bump here. I'm going to stop it for a second. I'll show you where you can raise your foot height. If you go into the settings and see where it says embroidery foot height right here, you don't want to go up very much, because if you go up too much, then you're going to get shredding of your thread. So I'm just going to go up one bump to the next one up, okay? So I'm just going to go up one bump. So that's just a little bit higher, just because I've got some bump. This has got those pinwheels in it. So some of the blocks don't have all these. This has got quite a large bump right here. So, and so I'm just kind of watching to make sure everything lays flat. I like the white though. I wasn't sure if I'd like the white on the borders, but I think it'd be fine. It's hard to know what color to quilt things in. I don't like my quilting to show a lot. I like my quilting to kind of blend in. So depending on, you might have wanted all your quilting to really show, and so then use a darker color. I just like the white to kind of be more blendy, and then I can see the indentation of the quilting. So it just depends on what you like. So I use white, I think, on most of mine, just because most of them have a light colored background. And again, you can use your embroidery thread if you want to. The embroidery thread is going to show a little bit more than like this quilting thread does, just because it is a little thicker. And it depends on if you want your quilting to show more. So I like mine to be kind of, subtle. So that's why I chose the quilting thread. So use whatever you like. If you're using embroidery thread, you wouldn't have to put it in the bobbin though. Actually, you would. I would put it in the bobbin because we have a regular back on. Yeah, because we have a regular back on this, so I would put it in the bobbin so that the back matches too. This looks really good. I like the little flowers. Now what's cool about these designs over the Amelie Scott designs is there's no starting and stopping points that you have to line up. So these actually appear seamless, but they're not. They're actually separate designs, but they appear seamless. So I think that's really neat how that happens, and you can't tell that they're separate designs, but they are separate designs for each one. And like Amelie Scott and like the new edge to edge in the machine. So I'm gonna work on that pretty soon too. The edge to edge, those have to be connected, so they do connect together. It's interesting that it's going back up there again. Oh, I see what it's doing. It's just doing the little like the little shadow layer. Okay. Yeah, this one's a little longer. When I picked it, I didn't realize this one was going to take a little longer. That's okay. And you can see it's so out. And then I'll show you how to hoop with the snowman, because the snowman's pretty awesome. And it is, a lot of machines have the snowman feature and the auto centering feature with the snowman, because it was a feature that came out with the Quattros years ago. So, it's been out on the machines for a long time. So and the people that have the newer machine, and I don't have that machine to show you, but I've done several classes with the app for like the Stellaires, the Altaires, the Meridian, that have the app. So but you do have to use a regular hoop because you need the little alignment grid thing. So those will need to be done with regular hoops instead of a snap hoop if you want to use your snowman feature. But it would be exactly the same. You just have to take the picture instead of using the scanning button. But it still works really well. Okay, so there's where that lump is. So I did raise my foot up just a little bit because of the lumps, and that it seems to be doing better now. because the pinwheels, you know, have quite a lot of points that come together there in the center. So, oh yeah, that's going over much better. So I just raised it one little bump. Don't get overzealous with that, because what happens then is you'll start shredding thread if you get it too high. So I am pretty careful I don't bring it up too much. Usually just one bump of the button is all I need. That looks awesome. And then we'll do some more with the snowman. And this doesn't take long to quilt. It's amazing. Like I said, this design is 7 or 8 minutes long. So some of them are not quite this long. A lot of them are maybe 2 minutes, 3, but this one has more detail with all the little flowers, I think. I really like it. I remember I did the one with the kites, and the kites were pretty small, so it did take quite a while to sew that one out. But there's only 6 hoopings with this hoop, so it doesn't take too long. Get your whole thing quilted. That looks great. You probably can't see it. You can see that. You can see the shadow of it, though, can't you? Yeah, there's another big bump there. So there's another one over here. That's why I thought I'd better raise the foot, because I noticed these pinwheels, you know, have those centers with all those points. So lets the foot go over them a little bit better. All right. So we're doing a flower. Of course, the flower has to be right on a bump. Oh well. Went over it though, fine. All right. And you can kind of see where you're going to be, because there's the corner that I put in. See, so we're down at the bottom now. So it's about done. But these are so cool because they don't have a start and stop point. They do, but they start and stop inside. And so when I go to do the next hooping, I don't have to try to get something aligned. So I do like that. Okay. All right, so there's our first hooping. So let's take this out so you can see it. And then I may turn the camera off for a minute while I readjust with the other hoops. Let's pull this off. And I'll show you how to do this with the snowman. We've done this a couple times now. I do really like the snowman feature. Okay. Ooh, that looks cool. What do you think? So there is the top, and then it looks really nice. I like that design. Okay, so I'm going to turn the camera off just for a minute so I can readjust with the other hoop. I got to get the other hoop in the machine, and then I'll show you how to use the camera to do that lineup. And it's even just as fast or faster. This is not hard. If you need to hoop these with a traditional hoop in your grid, see how easy I did that? Got it all lined up. Either use your laser light or your needle to make sure you're in the center, and then away you go. It's just super simple. All right, I'll be right back with the snowman feature. Okay, so I've kind of got reset with my I've got my dime snap hoop. So this is a 9.5 by 14 snap hoop. And I love these hoops because what I can do then, unlike the regular hoops, is I can leave this base in the machine. I don't have to move it out. I can just move the quilt or the top that I'm working on, and I don't have to take this out. Okay, and then there's a ring that drops on the top. Okay, so I'm going to bring this in here, and let's do the one below the one we just did. So what I want to do is I want to get my design fairly close to the center. So I've got my little mark here, you know, and I'm gonna put my needle approximately there, and then lay that there, and then I'm gonna grab my hoop. And now the top part of the hoop. Now this part of the hoop does have rulers on it. So I did a ruler video. It's like how to apply your dime snap hoop rulers. And there's a little download you have to use to get, because remember what we said about the other hoops is that the center is not truly the center of the sewing area. It's a little bit off. So are these. So there's a little design that you sew out to help you put your rulers. And that's why I love these, because the rulers are slightly offset as well with these hoops, unlike the regular hoops. So that's what's nice about this. Then I have a little bit of wiggle room. Okay. All right, so, and the other thing I like to do is I don't like to have pins under the snap hoops. Like there's a pin over here, so I'm going to pull this pin out because if you leave the pins in there, sometimes it doesn't grip as tight. So I'm going to grab this pin out of here. Okay, and watch your fingers because these things are strong. There's one over here, second here. One back here. I got to open this up. There's a little, like a little divot in here that you can get your fingers under to pull it apart. Let's get this out of the way, especially if it's the head of the pin because it's kind of thicker, you know. All right, so then what we want to do, so I got it fairly close to the center. So I've got my needle kind of fairly close there. And if you need to pull, now this, unlike regular hoops, you can tug on this a little bit. It's okay to do that and just kind of tug it around till you get it fairly close. That's pretty close. Okay. Then I'm checking the edges of my hoop, and I want all my edges. You can see down here I don't have quite the whole thing hooped because it wasn't long enough. That's why you want to leave a little bit around so you have most of your hoop filled. Okay. And if there's just a little space, it's okay, but it's better to have the whole thing filled if you can. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove the rest of these pins out of here. So I've got it in here. And I can tell that it's pretty straight by looking at my blocks and the ruler. So I can tell that it's pretty straight in the hoop. The idea is to keep it as straight as possible. Because like I'm looking here, and and it's a little crooked. It's not too bad though. So see, I can see here that I'm about on the number 7 line with both here and here. Okay, just so that I can kind of tell that I'm fairly straight in the hoop. And the snowman's going to straighten it out for me, but if it's too off, then sometimes the design will go outside of the area because it's twisting it. So just be careful you get it relatively straight. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so I have to find a snowman. Now the little snowman stickers come with your machine. I must have used mine, so I don't have one out here, so let me grab one here. You can get more if you run out. You can use these multiple times, so I'll probably do most of the rest. You know, I might do this whole quilt plus another part of one. So what I'm going to do, let me just pull this out so you can see me doing it. There we go. Let's pull it out a little bit. I'm going to take my snowman sticker, and his little head goes up, okay? And I'm going to put it right on those lines that I drew for the center, okay? Line it all up, and I'm just going to stick it down. Make sure it's good and stuck down, because if it's curled or something, sometimes it won't read. I'm going to push this back in, and you can still see that then his little stomach is where the center point is, and the needle is still pretty close to that, so we should be good. Okay. All right. This is how easy it is to use the snowman. It is super easy. Now, those of you with the Stellaires, Altaires, Meridians, at this point, you would have taken your picture, okay, and sent it to the machine, and then the last step of your snowman is to go to layout. Some of these will say edit here if you have a Dream Machine or Destiny, and then hit the little snowman. This is how easy it is to use the snowman. Hit the little snowman guy. Okay to revert to the original position. So in other words, if we moved it in the hoop, it's going to go back to the beginning as if it hadn't been moved yet. And I want to choose this, I want to line up the center, which is this button right here, which is the default, so you don't have to worry about it. And you can actually line up your top left, your center, side ones, your bottom right, whatever. But I like to use the center, so I'm going to use the center, and I'm going to click scan. Okay, and okay. Okay, that's all there is to doing the snowman. Okay, so now what it's going to do, it's going to scan my hoop here, and it's going to find, make sure you're sat back far enough so it doesn't hit anything. It's going to find the snowman. So it has to find him. Ooh, I think it might have found him. Okay. Okay, so it says it cannot recognize. So let's make sure. Sometimes I have to do it twice, and I don't know why, but we're just going to try it again. Sometimes you do it the second time and it's perfect. So who knows? So it's going to scan again. So here he was. I still haven't figured out why it does that every now and then, that it just doesn't recognize it, but usually if I do scan it a second time, sometimes it's something to do with the fabric that I have in the hoop too. Sometimes it's a color thing. Oh, I think it found him this time. So here he is. Okay, so it's lining him up. Okay, it says remove the embroidery positioning mark. Okay, so we're just going to take our little snowman off. So if that happens, just do it again. And every now and then, so there's some things that can cause that. Is, like I said, sometimes fabric. So this fabric, as you can see, kind of is polka dotty. And I also have a little trouble with stripes sometimes, but I think it's just the fabric. Also, it can make a difference with your lighting in your house. If you're in a very dark area or if you're in an overly bright area, sometimes it causes it. I just try again. You know, if I just do it the second time, it usually is fine. All right. If you're worried about it being lined up, you can always take your fabric, your thread out, and you can drop your needle and see if it put it right down in the little hole in the middle of the snowman. Okay. That's always a way you can check just to make sure that it's okay. And I sometimes still do that just to make sure it's okay. All right. All right. I think we're ready to go. Now see how easy that snowman was. So I'm going to go ahead. We'll do a second hooping. I may turn this one off. Now I got to make sure my camera doesn't get hit by the hoop here. And again, I'm going to kind of hold this because there's some bumps, you know. I did raise my foot up just that one little bump, but there's still some pretty good bumps in these pinwheels. I really like this design though. When I do the pinwheels, and I'll show you when we do this one in the piecing, I actually do open the seam up in the center just to make it lay flatter, and it really does help a lot. But you can see where the marks are on the sides here and at the top, and you know your design is going to fit within those marks. All right. So I'm going to continue this. I'm going to go ahead and pause the camera for a minute while this is stitching, and then I'll show you what it looks like at the end, and we'll do another hooping. Okay, so I'm getting down here towards the bottom of the design, and you can see, you know, I've got this sewn down, so I'm not having any problems with it catching my foot or anything. I also wanted to take this opportunity to tell you that I do have a number 11 embroidery needle, and I usually quilt with a number 11 needle. You could put a 14 in if you like. I usually use an 11. And then the other thing I wanted to tell you, did you notice that on these corners, there's no embroidery yet, is there? So we're doing these little table toppers kind of backwards from the instructions. And so I'll explain that when we start the classes in February. But we're going to be quilting them in between piecing the top and doing the embroidery, because the embroidery is going to be done through the, actually through the whole top. And what I did just to make it pretty on the back is I just used matching thread for my embroidery on the back so that it looks really cute on the back. These designs are the original Kimberbell Cuties, and they were done originally as a sewing pattern. So this quilting would have been done by like free motioning or straight line quilting, and you can still do that if you want, but I like the idea of being able to quilt it first. So when I started working on these, I thought, okay, I can't free motion around all this stuff on the corners and everything. So we need to do that last. So this is how I came up with doing these, is to piece the top, sandwich it, quilt it, and then we're going to do the embroidery through the whole, all three layers. And you will see the embroidery on the back, but if you put the matching thread on, it's actually very pretty. So I just finished up that little section, so you can see it went over the edge just a little bit. All right, so there is our second hooping. This one was done with the snowman. So what I love about magnetic hoops is I don't have to take everything out of the machine. So I'm just going to grab this off, okay? And I'm going to kind of, it's kind of tight. I'm just going to kind of hang this up over the top of my machine here, okay? And now I'm going to pull this down. Let's go over here to the top here. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing. I left the bottom in. The bottom of the hoop is in. Sorry, the hoop is making my camera out of focus. So come on. Sometimes if you, it'll come back. It'll come back. I promise. The autofocus is funny if things are moving too much. It likes to not focus on what's farther away. It'll come back. I'm sorry. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So I'm going to, again, I left this in, okay, and that's why I left all this little space along here. See, I have a little bit to hoop onto. I'm going to get this close to the center of the next hooping on the top here. And I've got my hoop, and I'm just going to pull my hoop down now. I just kind of threw it over the top of the machine. I'm going to bring this down, and I'm going to snap it down. So see, I didn't have to take everything out of the machine. Now I've got some pins down here, so I got to take these out. But I love these hoops for doing this type of method because then I don't have to remove everything out of the machine. It goes much faster. Okay, so again, here I am going to look at this and see if I can get this as straight as possible in the hoop. I'm looking at the numbers here and at the top. And it is relatively crooked, so give me a second here. I got to stand up. These are the ones that are hard because they're a little bit hard to see at the top when this long hoop. And I'm going to try to give this a little bit more, get it lined up a little bit better on the side. Okay, that's a little bit better. Let's see. Kind of see where I'm at up there. It looks pretty good. Okay, let's move this over a little bit. And I'm getting this all lined up and make sure all the edges are even. This one's a little off. There we go. All right. So let's get some of these pins out of here again. Now I notice that I am a little off here, but I don't think I'm so off that it's going to be a problem. And that's the one thing about this, going up to this bigger hoop, then you don't have to worry so much about if your design is perfectly centered. Your hoop gives you a little more wiggle room. But like I said, you can see that there's no embroidery here in these corners, so we're doing this kind of backwards, the way from the instructions. So we'll talk about that as we're doing our table toppers, but I just thought this was a different way of doing them, and I cannot free motion. And I've always wanted to do these, and I had to think about it for a while to figure out how I would do it without free motioning. Okay, so I got to find my snowman again. So here's my snowman. And we're going to go ahead and put him in here. See if I can get him in here without, I have to pull this out. Sometimes it's hard for me to, if I'm too far away, I can't get him lined up here. So, whoops. Let's get him lined up. So I'm going to lay my little snowman on here. So this will be an excellent exercise for people that have never really used their snowman. And again, if I'm using the snowman with the Altair Meridian, the Stellaires, I would have my regular hoop in here. I'd have to use the regular hoop because it has the little alignment things at the top and the bottom. You take your picture and then you do the same thing that I'm doing on the screen. You just have to take a picture first. Okay. And it's the advanced centering on the app. So you have to use your app. That looks pretty good. Okay. So push this back. I'm a little bit off to the side, but I think it'll be okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead back over here. And I'm going to go ahead and I like to put it back in the center manually. I don't know. It seems like it likes it better that way. So I'm just going to hit my snowman. So I have layout or edit, depending on which machine you have. Hit the snowman, hit OK, and hit scan. That's all there is to use in your snowman. It's pretty easy. You put him on where you want him. Okay, so now it's going to scan. See if it can find it. Now, it may not like this because that's a little bumpy up there. We'll see if it's okay. Sometimes they get a little testy if there's a bump somewhere. Yeah, I think it might find it. Ooh, I think it did. So here's the screen. So here he is. Did he find him? Oh, yay, it found him. Okay, so we're good. So I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to remove my sticker. And if you're not sure, come over here, take your thread out of your machine, needle down, and my needle is right directly in the hole, in that little dot in the center, so we're good. Okay, so if you're just not sure, if you just want to check it, you can check it. All right, so now we're ready for another hooping. I am going to check this up here. My batting and fabric is just a little bit poofy at the top, so I'm going to kind of smooth it out there. Okay, make sure everything's lined up. Okay, off we go. So I'm going to hit the go button and we're going to do another hooping here. I am going to make sure that my camera doesn't get hit here. I'm going to back up a little bit. And again, since I've got this stitched down, I don't have to worry about it catching. I really dreaded having to do like edge to edge and different things because some of the stuff was so hard to keep it from catching on the edges. So I really do like this little stitching it down method. It really helps. That looks good. So off it goes to the next one. And this takes about 8 minutes, so I'll go ahead and pause the camera when we get closer to the end, and we'll do one more hooping. This is the third hooping, so we're halfway done already. It doesn't take long once you get started. So I'll go ahead and pause the video for a little bit while this stitches, and then I may do one more, and then we'll start the other side. Okay, so I'm almost done with the fourth hooping here. And I went ahead and hooped another one on the right-hand side. So we did the 2 middle, and then I showed you the starting of the top on the right-hand side of the topper. And then this is the bottom on the right-hand side. So we're just about done. You can see where I stitched down, I don't have to worry about all that having problems with my foot catching or anything. So it's really looking nice. I did notice that I must have been just a teeny tiny little bit off over here because my designs kind of overlapped. And you know, if it does that, don't worry about it. You know, how do people know that it's not supposed to do that? There's also going to be binding right here, so I don't know that you're even going to see it, to be quite honest. Every now and then I'll get just a little bit this way, you know, like just a little bit side to side, and I'll get a little overlap, but I never worry about it because, you know, how do we know that that's not supposed to be like that? Oh my gosh, that looks really nice. I really like the pattern on the black. Isn't that pretty? You can really see it. Cool. So now we're going to go ahead and do the fifth hooping. And I might need to put another bobbin in. Let me take a look here. Might need another bobbin. So let's put this up over the machine. And whoops, let me check the bobbin here. Yeah, I think I'm going to put another full bobbin in so I won't run out. Because I'm going to do 2 more hoopings. And that's the last 2 hoopings. So this is going to be done. This is so fun. And then we'll do, so the way the classes will work, we'll do the, you know, piecing the first week, and then the second week we will do the embroidery. But in between, you'll have this video to watch in order to do all the quilting. And the quilting with the clear blue tiles. And like I said, if you don't have clear blue tiles and you don't want them, you can quilt them any way you want. You can quilt them just by doing straight line quilting. You can quilt them with the edge to edge, like the Amelie Scott design, edge to edge designs. Juju has these really cool end to end designs now. So any way that you want to quilt them, you can quilt them. You don't have to use the clear blue tiles. I get a lot of questions about clear blue tiles. And I just wanted to use the clear blue tiles since these were a Kimberbell project. And I just find the Kimberbell, or these clear blue tiles, I'm really, really enjoying them now. When I first saw them, I thought, oh gosh, you know, I don't really need those. But then, you know, I started using them and I really do like them. I mean, they just are so easy. The designs are adorable. They have tons of designs, so you have lots of options. And I don't have to, the thing I like about them is I don't have to, so I'm just getting this lined up. You know, I've got my center in the center here. I'm trying to get it as lined up as I can. Now this one's a little short on this side, so I'm going to see if I can stretch this out just a little bit more so I can catch it a little bit better. One side of my edging. My batting and backing was just a little shorter than the other one, so I didn't get it completely centered. So I think it'll be okay though. I think it's caught enough, so it'll be fine. So I'm checking the centers. I've got my needle right over the little polka dot here where the snowman's going to go, and I want to make sure the edges of my hoop are all even. I feel pretty good. Okay, let's take these pins out. But I do really like these. I'm just really starting to like them. And I think the designs are so cute and they turn out so good. And I really like the fact that I don't have to connect them. I often would get like a little mark where my connection was because, you know, if it wasn't perfectly connected, you could see it depending on the thread you used. And these, you know, there's no connection, so you don't have to worry about that. And I do really like their designs. So I have most of their quilting designs, and so I can do, you know, block by block. So when you buy the quilting designs now, and we have our affiliate link up on it'll be under this video, the affiliate link, so you can go buy designs, and then Shield Sewing Center gets a little, you know, a little gift if you click on our affiliate link to go get your designs. But what's cool about them is that now they have the clear blue tile files and the block by block files in each one, so you get both of them, so you get a lot of designs. And so I really do like these. Okay, so then I'm going to put my snowman on. So I got it kind of lined up here. I'm going to put my snowman on in the center. Show you another hooping so you can, it's always good to repeat things so that, you know, we learn better by repeating a few times. Make sure I get it straight. Sometimes I get a little crooked with these. There. Yep, still not quite straight. Make sure that snowman's good and stuck down because you don't want it popping up. Okay. And you can use it quite a few times, as you can see. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, go back over here. I'm going to hit the move button again. Oops. After I hit finish embroidery, I'm going to move it back to the center. And then I'm going to go ahead and I hit the little snowman. Okay. Then I'm going to hit the scan button down here. It's in the center. Scan and okay. So see how easy that is? It's very easy to use your snowman. And like I said, in between there, if you have one of the machines with the app, you just have to take the picture first, and then you do the same thing that I just did. It's very easy. And the app actually works very accurately. That's the other thing that I've been having a little trouble with. Okay, so it says cannot recognize this time. So we're just gonna do it again. Sometimes it's just the light. Or maybe I stuck my hand in there. It just sometimes doesn't recognize. So I don't know why. If you just do it again, often it's just happy as can be then. So don't be afraid if it does that. Just try it again. And I think what mine is more, it's the light. And again, I also think it could be something to do with the fabric, because sometimes fabrics have a lot of dots and stuff on them, and I think it confuses the machine a little bit. And this black border, I just wondered if this would and sometimes stripes bother me. And there's certain colors, sometimes that cause a little problem. Okay, so they see it. Second time, did it perfectly. So just hit OK. I'm going to take my snowman off. Looks great, all centered and everything. You can tell that my little polka dot's right under my needle. So I'm not going to check it this time. And I'm going to check to make sure everything's lined up though. Okay, and then off we go. Now this one I am going to have to watch a little bit more because I've got fabric inside here. And this is where you could use those little slap bands if you want to. This is not a very big design, so I'm just gonna hold it. So those little slap bands that they give you work pretty good. They're a little heavy though, and if I have this heavy hoop in there and then stick those in there too, it seems like I could get a little drag. So I usually just roll it up. Most of the time I don't have any trouble. But you can see I've got this is all stitched down up here, so we should be safe. So we don't have to watch it. In fact, I got up and walked to the kitchen, and while it was sewing, and I came back and it was all done. So I like the stitching along the edge, doing the basting or stitching it down, zigzagging it down, because then I don't have to worry about that foot getting caught. That was something that was really hard with all of these quilting methods, like even edge-to-edge quilting, the same thing. I struggled figuring out a way to keep the edges from getting caught under my foot. And you know, you tried the tape, you tried the glue, I tried all these different things, but the zigzagging it down or basting it down is the best way. And you may, with a larger item, have to start basting, do a little bit of basting at a time instead of, like before you hooped it again, you know, baste the area you're working on and then work your way out a little bit and then finish the edges. Just because it may be, you don't want it to pucker on the edges, but this is a small piece and it was fine. I pin basted it, made sure it was good and flat, and then I just basted around the edge. So most of the small stuff I do it this way. All right, so it's going to continue sewing. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the camera, and I'll show you one more snowman on the last hooping. We're almost done, and I'm so excited. I really like the pattern on this one. So I'll turn off the video for a moment while this is stitching, and actually I'm going to go put my lunch in the oven at the same time, and then I will come back and do the last hooping for you. Okay, just finished the 5th hooping, ready for the last one. Oh my gosh, I just really like this on the border. It looks really pretty. So I'm going to flip this back up again. Don't have to take it out of the hoop. We can just, or out of the machine, we can just slide it up. And then I'm going to get this lined up here, approximately with my needle. I am going to move this back to the center so that it's a little more centered for me. There we go. I'm going to go up and get it about, you know, centered. Okay. And I'm going to have to work hard to get enough fabric. It's hard to know how much fabric to leave around the edge, and I try to leave as much as I can. I hate to waste like tons, but when you're working with embroidered quilting, you have to have something to hoop onto. So I would say 3 to 4 inches all the way around, and at 28 inches, that's about, it's 22, so that's, you know, 6 inches, that's about 3 inches. So that's why I chose 28 inches for my batting and my backing. And make the batting the same size. You wouldn't have to, but it's nice because then you have the batting, and that helps everything clamp a little tighter than just clamping to the fabric. Okay, so we got this about in the right spot. Let's go ahead and remove these last pins. Almost done with the pins here. And all right, make sure it looks pretty straight. Let me look at it here. Looks pretty good. Let's see how I did here. Okay, find my snowman again. That's why I'm going to have to pull it back a little bit so I can see and get my snowman on here. So by the time you do these, and a lot of you have the snowman feature, you will know how to do this. Now, if you're, like I said, if you're using the app with the Stellaire or I did this procedure with the snowman on a Shields Live. So it's on my YouTube video, our YouTube channel under Shields Live, and it's using that app, and I showed people how to use it. So if you're unsure about how the app works, go ahead and watch that video, and that'll help you. And this is exactly what I did with it, and it really, really works well. So, and then the rest of us have the camera built into the machine. So I know a lot of you have these bigger machines, but if you're doing the traditional method with the grid, hey, that worked just fine too. You notice my first one just went right into the center, so no problem. All right, so we got this centered again. I'm going to go ahead and hit my little snowman. Okay, it's in the center. Hit the scan button down here. You probably can't quite see it. Scan, and okay again, and it's going to scan it. Get this all lined up for the next one. I have kind of a bump here, so it might make it mad. Sometimes I have to do it twice, but if it does that, don't worry. Just try it again. I have pretty decent light here too, so I have a little more trouble at the store with, especially if the machine's up in the front, towards the front window with a really kind of a glary light. Okay, well, I think it found it. Remove the positioning mark. All right, ready for that. put this up here on my, and I can use, whoop, there goes my snowman. I'll get him stuck up here on my machine again. Okay. So here we are, ready to do our last hooping on this table topper. I'm going to hit the OK, and then off I go. I'm going to go ahead and stitch this one. I do have to kind of watch because with this rolled up in here, this is not a very big table topper, so it's not too bad. But I have to kind of watch it a little bit. Looks great. Now you can see this one got just a little close up there, but you know, it's fine. Who's going to know if it's just a hair close to the other one? And when that happens for me is I probably didn't mark completely accurately in here. There's a little bit, let me grab my tile so you can see what I'm talking about. I have a little trouble being just a smidge off sometimes because with these tiles, as you can see here, there's a little bit of a space in here. And so when you go to put your pen in, you might be a little closer up or down or side to side to one edge or the other. And so that, I think, is what causes that problem. Sorry, now my camera's going to be off focus. Let me see if I can focus it on something that's not moving. It doesn't like things that are moving. But that's why sometimes you'll get just a smidge off. So like these little flowers just touch each other on the edge. But you know what? Who's to say that wasn't the way it's supposed to be? So no one's going to ever know. But I know it's because the slot is just a little bit wider than my pen, and I might get a little close on one side or the other. So, all right. So I'll pause the video while this is stitching, and I'll show you the finished result when we get done here. Okay, so we're just about done with the last hooping. And since it's all stitched down, I'm not having any problems with it catching on my foot or anything. So when I'm done with this, we'll take it out of the hoop. When I'm done, the next step is going to be the embroidery on this table topper. So I will not remove any of the extra fabric or batting. I like to leave it on so I have just a little extra around the quilt or the tops in this case to hoop to. So I don't do any of the trimming or anything. So what I am going to do is I'm also going to make a binding video for the cuties. So I'll show you the trimming in the binding video to trim off your edges and get ready for your binding. But I don't like to trim it until after the embroidery. So the next step after this quilting is going to be the embroidery. All right, so I might actually do that this afternoon. So we'll do this live, but I'm going to make this one this afternoon. Okay, so there is our fully quilted top. Isn't that pretty? It's even pretty on the back. I'll turn it over. I really like that design. I thought that was cute because the little flowers that go on this one, this is the May one, are all kind of like daisy looking flowers. So, okay, and I'll turn it over. Now, the other thing I wanted to tell you is that people ask me, well, aren't you going to see the knots on the back? Well, as you saw this quilt sewing, you notice that it didn't like skip around a lot and start and stop and knot off and everything. It's pretty much continuous. So you're not going to have a lot of knots, but you will have, the start and stop points. So there's usually going to be 2. So what I do often also is I kind of am mindful of the backing color so that I don't use I don't use a thread that's like super contrasty on the back. Because what I do, honestly, I just leave the knots alone. I might trim them a little bit. There's a knot right here. And I'll pull it up and I'll just trim it off. Don't trim through the knot. But I kind of use, I don't like to have super contrasty thread for my back either because then you don't see. Now I have done a couple with contrasting backs with white thread with black and it looks just fine. But just this is going to have some knots because we're doing this on the embroidery machine. If I was going to quilt this piece, for a competition, this would probably not be the way I'd quilt it. I'd quilt it on my long arm so that I didn't have any knots in the back. But you know what? If you trim these and they get washed, you're not going to see them that much. Just be mindful of the color you put on the back. And often I don't have any contrasting at all. I kind of like to make everything kind of blend in. That's the way I like mine. But if you want contrast, do contrast. It works just fine. So anyway, so there's our finished all of our quilting is done. It was only 6 hoopings in that 8 by 12 hoop. If you're going to do the 6 by 10, you know, you're going to have about 4. You're going to have to have 2 rows, and then you'll have to have a third one. And the third one at the bottom, if you don't want to use the big hoop, the big template, you could actually make a shorter one there to finish the little bit at the bottom. But this one just was kind of evenly divisible, and it just went barely off the edge. So that's why I used the 8 by 12. I just thought it divided well for this particular project. So, okay. So the one thing I am going to do before I embroider though is I'm going to go to my iron and see this is that heat away pen. So I'm going to go ahead and take all my marks off and then press it nicely so it's nice and flat. And oh, and I forgot to tell you what batting I used. That's the one thing I wanted to tell you too. I forgot to tell you what batting I used. I actually like a little bit loftier batting. So this is an 80-20 batting. This is Hobbs 80-20. You can use a thinner batting if you want. You can use anything that you like. The only one I don't care for too much is Warm and Natural because it's very hard and it doesn't show the it's kind of hard so that the thread doesn't sink in, and this gives you a little more loft. So I really like that loft on here. Even better than like the project batting, the real thin cotton battings. So you use whatever batting you want. It'll all work. But the Hobbs 80-20 is my favorite. So that's what I've used here. So I'm going to take this to my iron now. I'm going to take my marks off. And then I'm going to leave all the extra on before the embroidery, just it'll be easier to hoop then. Sometimes you need some extra hooping space for, I can't remember if you have to use a 5 by 7 or a 6 by 10 hoop. So I'll have to look on the instructions for this one. All right, so thank you for joining me for the quilting portion of the Kimberbell Cuties. If you have any questions, you can reach me through Facebook, Shield Sewing Center, shieldsewingcenter.com. If you email me, I get the emails. You can text me, you can message me through Messenger, through Facebook, and so on. So thank you so much, and have a great day.